Tom White from D.A. Davidson and Angelo Zeno from CFRA. Tom, I'll come to you first. Did they prove the type of resilience that you were looking for?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say that they have. Look, the two things that stood out to me at looking at the numbers here. One, just the revenue outperformance. So revenues declined about 22% year over year, excluding the impact of FX. The street was, I think, expecting kind of a down 35% number. So yes, certainly resilient. And if you compare their revenue performance to some of the other online travel assets that Airbnb gets compared to, like Booking Holdings or Expedia, both of those companies saw their revenues down, north of 60% year over year. So Airbnb down 22%. The other thing that stood out is, there's been a lot of discussion about how this recovery in travel globally has really not been particularly linear, which is something I think investors would like to see, is sort of a steady trajectory of improvement in the underlying trends. And for a lot of the companies, it hasn't been linear. But Airbnb in the letter talked about the first quarter revenue growth forecast does show, a moderating pace of a further moderation in the revenue decline. So there does seem to be a little bit more maybe linearity in Airbnb's recovery than some of the other companies in the space.
Your take, Angelo?
I would echo all those comments. I mean, when you kind of look at the results here, I mean, it definitely shows a lot of resiliency relative to the broader travel space. I mean, you're looking at sales down only 22% relatively to where we were originally looking at, about down 34%. Looking at the gross bookings value, also significantly better than where we had anticipated. We would have liked to have seen a 2021 outlook, but, definitely didn't anticipate one. Managing costs extremely well, kind of amid the pandemic. And, I think they're very well positioned kind of going here into 2021 as we kind of start seeing that recovery into the second half of the year.
So how, Tom, did they prove more resilient than the rest of the travel sector? What sort of pivots did Airbnb make, and how does that set them up for post-pandemic?
Yeah, so look, I wouldn't say that they made any pivots. If anything, the pivot was just focusing on the core. And that's really focusing on hosts, first and foremost. Also, this idea of just sort of local experiences and really kind of sticking to that core knitting of what Airbnb started with. I think the way I like to think about it is over the course of the pandemic, Airbnb went from being a true alternative in the eyes of a lot of people who are looking to book lodgings to now being really kind of a standard or a typical way that people are going to look to travel. So we think they're positioned pretty well post-pandemic. As I said, great new customer acquisition opportunity the pandemic has clearly been for Airbnb. And the pandemic's also opened up some new use cases, we think, for this business. Things like work from home, work from anywhere, that I think could provide solid tailwinds here for the business in the future.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.